All right, let's get started. 4:35 on the dot, and I'm sure you have enough going on after this as well. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Fantastic day so far. And I do want to call out Identiverse. It's my first Identiverse, and I've been really pleased. They're doing a fabulous job just bringing everyone in the ecosystem together so we can all band together and move this ecosystem forward, right? Because you'll all agree with me, 10 years ago, who was ever worried about identity? Right? It was a back office conversation, it was help desk conversations, and now if you look at it past 2-3 years, it's a board level conversation. Identity has become a focal point of our digital society. Right? It's business essential, and it's growing fast. And now we look at what are the different identity types, what are the different capabilities. Everything that each one of you have been looking at for several years has now come to the forefront. So it's a fantastic time to be in this space, I feel. And Identiverse is doing a fabulous job bringing everyone together. So again, thank you all for joining us today. My name is Jayashree Subramanya, and I'm here with SailPoint, and I have two of our fantastic customers here. Vidya Ganesh and, of course, Jonathan Ahmada. I hope I've said your last name right. All right, perfect. So as a quick round, I wanted to make sure I introduce both of them to you, and we wanted to sort of take advantage of the situation and go through some of the best practices both AES Corporation and NVIDIA, Jonathan is from NVIDIA, are going through and what their approach is for identity and also security. Right? So again, Vidya is a director of Identity and Access Management Solution at the AES Corporation. She's been there for about 13 plus years. Right?
20 months.
20 months. No, meaning to say in the cybersecurity space for
13
plus year, and AES for about 20 months and growing rapidly. And Jonathan, again, you've been at NVIDIA for about less than a year.
Over a year now.
Over a year now, and he came from Cisco, and he is a senior engineer for identity access governance and handles all of NVIDIA's identity management tools that we've got. Right? And so both of them are here. And we wanted to sort of start with Vidya here, AES Corporation. AES Corporation is a global, as you all know, a global energy company that distributes and generates energy for about electric power for about 15 different countries. So go clean energy. You've been there for 20 months. What has been your unique identity security challenges that you face at AES?
Yeah, thank you, Jayashree. First of all, thank you, guys, for coming over. At 4:35, we have a really packed room, so I'm very excited. AES is a global company. We distribute and produce electric power, 15 countries. What I've seen is just our workforce is scattered around all continents. We've had kind of a proliferation of acquisitions, divestitures. Every year we do some. And so, we do have that identity sprawl that everybody talks about, right? So uniquely, we inherited as part of our acquisitions, different companies, they have different administrations, very regional focused, and then they manage their idea of identity management is very different. So trying to bring that all in a centralized, unified manner was a big challenge for us, but I'm sure that's something that all of you can relate to as well. And then we also have an extended contingent worker and contractor workforce that's growing. In fact, 33% of our workforce, total 15,000 employees, almost 4,000 of them are contingent workers. So it's kind of a rapidly growing segment of our workforce. So trying to bring that into compliance. And we definitely are on our journey here, trying to share some of the learnings. So those two, thanks.
Awesome, thank you, Vidya. Jonathan, you're at NVIDIA. Perfect time to be at NVIDIA. NVIDIA is doing so well right now, so we're all watching NVIDIA. And so NVIDIA is growing rapidly as well, right? 26,000 employees, 35 countries. And of course, you've got all these machine identities, you've got all the non-employees as well. From your standpoint, what are those unique challenges that you are facing at NVIDIA when it comes to identity governance?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Good question. Here's what's unique about NVIDIA is we think we're a startup still, right? And we operate so quickly. We're constantly trying to innovate. and hopefully for good reason, as you guys are seeing the news. But the problem is that it creates a ton of silos, right? A ton of shadow IT processes. So when I first joined NVIDIA, it was still a matter of figuring out who owns half the stuff that's there to provision access today. One of the biggest challenges that we were dealing with is not having ownerships, right? Not having a proper CMDB of every single different application, knowing their criticality, right? The risk associated to each application. So there's work right now as I speak to bring in a CMDB solution of some sort, tag all the different risks and data classifications associated with those. And the other challenge was once we were able to identify a lot of the process that were really had no owners, it was now became a process of change management, right? And in a company that's been operating at such a speed, the last thing they want to hear is how we're going to make it difficult for them. So the biggest challenge is really became in saying we need to stop doing what we're doing right now. That's not going to get us where we need to be, especially at the growth we're going. You mentioned that we were 26,000. That's when we first started with SailPoint, right? Now we're at over 40,000. We're growing at a tremendous rate. It may seem small for some of the companies out there that are well over 100,000, close to 1 million employees. But for a company that went from that 26 to overnight go to 41, now we're dealing with a different set of challenges. That is too fast and not enough of us to be able to put the brakes. There are onboarding applications at a faster rate that we could possibly even consider what that application is doing, right? So we're now facing different challenges, but anyways, I'll stop there. I think we can talk more about it later, but that's a lot of different things going on right now.
Thank you for highlighting, both of you. Thank you for highlighting the challenges. Now, how about, let's dive into how did you sort of go ahead? What was the step-by-step approach that you've taken to overcome these challenges?
Yeah, so I think when I started 20 months ago, we were on our way of application onboarding, and actually, things were going good, but we had very strict board commitments. So our board was we had kind of committed to the board that we would onboard like 66% of our critically marked applications as crown jewels to be onboarded, and we were behind schedule. And I think part of the reason was trying to get the right players engaged. There was no like concerted program, so just kind of bringing that to the forefront really helped as far as a board deliverable goes. So we had a huge challenge, and I'm going to give a big shout out to our integration partner Uber Ether, along with SailPoint. It was a lot of struggle, a lot of endless nights and days working together, but. Indeed, in our very first year, we actually came up and met our board deliverables. So by December, we did do what we did. So that was our immediate call to action, was bringing those board commitment applications into SailPoint. The second item was to come up with a plan for moving governance around these non-employees, right? So we had these contingent workforce that were at least entered in Workday as an HR system. Our employees were always managed in Workday, but contractors, they were just scattered all over the world. There was no proper management around it. So we decided to leverage Nelm as part of our SailPoint suite to actually make SailPoint be the system of record for contractors. And so we got to that approach. We first onboarded our contingent workforce, but was just a Workday to SailPoint integration. And then with contractors, we had a very complex ServiceNow to SailPoint integration, where the request for a contractor originates in ServiceNow, which is our ticketing system. And essentially, with our identity orchestration, we're able to create just a basic account for a contractor globally using a central process. So we've removed all those silos, provided all those efficiencies for the business.
Perfect. Thank you, Vidya. Jonathan?
Very similar story. For us, our first go live included contractors and regular employees. Immediately, we use Workday at NVIDIA, so we had a source. We knew at least we had something we can trust. But we started to provision the critical IDPs, right? We still have Active Directory like a lot of us, right? And we primarily are Microsoft Shop in that sense. We use Entra ID for our SSO and MFA services. So we knew what the high risk, right? We knew what the critical applications were. We went after them in our go live from start to finish. The identity governance team didn't exist at NVIDIA, right? This was a completely new concept. It was ran like in a traditional IT shop, right, where you have some sysadmins with some PowerShell knowledge, right, and they would put together some scripts to be able to create some of these accounts. Well, we had to change that completely, right? We needed to bring in experts, so we actually were able to bring in some helps from professional services to really get us on board, while in parallel we're trying to ramp up this team. So that helped us tremendously to get us there. But the next things that we wanted to identify were things like partners, right? Right now, especially, we're getting a lot of partnerships, right? You're hearing on the news of every single time, so-and-so partnering with NVIDIA. Well, that comes with some sort of a level of control and access that come into our system. So we're actually using Nelm for partner use cases in that sense, where now we have a source of record, we have approvals in place, we have something that's governing that access. Users will be able to go in there and request these accounts. We provision specific access, because one of the big changes in our philosophy has been zero birthright access, right? And really what that means is not necessarily that you start and you have zero access, but it's that every application is built with that model in mind, and it's governed in that model in mind, where if you need to peel back the onion, or I like to call the big red button, if we need to stop someone and eliminate their access at a moment's notice, we're able to do that, right? So using those concepts, we're able to create some of these access models to do that. So that was the big thing, is just working with professionals. At the time, the team had none, and now we've onboarded several more, and we're able to work at a much faster rate.
Yeah, and just so I'll build on this a little bit more, right? You've implemented the lifecycle management aspect of it. Share with everyone the impact and the benefits of how you've approached it, Jonathan, and then I'll come to
Sure.
NVIDIA.
Well, operationally, right, we've reduced a lot of costs with our service desk. A lot of operations were still being done through a ServiceNow ticket. Most of that has been automated now. And the big thing there is it's easy to sell the operational savings, but the biggest savings, in my opinion, has been the removal of access for those service desks. Right? It's impossible for us to guarantee that our tiered structure at service desks are properly trained and are proper administrators of the different tools. I cannot trust that they're going to be able to have access in Active Directory, especially in Entra or any other directory that you may have. Right? So that's been a big thing for us, is every time we could eliminate a human from having to do an activity, I'm right there pushing as to why we haven't done it already. The other big benefit has been the fact that we've detected, now that we have most of these accounts under our control and SailPoint management, we've eliminated over 50,000 accounts that were essentially dormant, and tons of other accounts that were just needed to be deleted from the environment. When you start to look at that data, and this is something that SailPoint has helped us with, at least from that end, is analyze this data using AI. You start to realize that account, right, has hundreds of thousands of different access items assigned to it. So the fact that those accounts were there were such a huge KPI for us that we needed to target, and now we're there, right? We have a harsh policy when it comes to our accounts. We're taking remediated action the moment you're terminated, and we're deleting your accounts as far as we can go, right? We don't want no trace record. Now, there is a fine balance, of course, some audit requirements, but those have been some of the huge wins that our management has seen and are easily helping us kind of continue to be on this trend or this ship of IGA, if you will, because it's really hard to put a value to this effort. But when you see that and you eliminate all those attack vectors, that's the real number of metrics that they're after.
And the business case is critical, right? Be it efficiency, and if you look at it, whatever said and done, for an IAM program, you do need to look at what the return on investment is, and it's critical to get to the next step as well.
Yeah, so, just to add to that, from a business case perspective, a lot of conversation that Jonathan said, we use NILM as a means to start our first non-employee global revalidation. So that was kind of the first time in our entire ecosystem we were able to do a validation. So essentially we removed users as a result of that, and that was a direct savings, because we were giving M365 licenses for these users who were dormant or perhaps not even using that account. So that was an instant savings. So we saved hundreds of thousands of dollars in this process. So it wasn't just good business, it was good return as well.
No, it's really good to hear, Vidya. And I want to come back to lifecycle management, very similar to what Jonathan mentioned. you saved a lot of time. The manual approval process took you months.
Yeah.
And now you're to about 4 hours, right?
Yeah.
Share with everyone, the impact of that you're seeing across the company and how it's growing as well.
Absolutely. So this was a huge game changer for us. Our company is definitely in the cutting edge. We're trying to we have a pretty high cost of capital, so we build power plants, but we have to go through not the traditional power plants, but our power plants are like solar energy, wind energy, hydro, so everything except nuclear. So essentially it costs a lot of money, so we have to extract the savings from the entire operations of our day-to-day as much as possible. And so by just doing this approval, we've actually eliminated all those manual steps, the regional contacts that had to do work a certain way, and we've unified that, in the umbrella of identity governance. We've actually completely centralized our joiner, mover, leaver process across all the 15 countries that we operate. So this was a huge game changer. We've kind of now gotten people in the regional IT departments to be now our partners, and not just kind of, who moved my cheese, right? Now they're like definitely saving time, manual processes are getting eliminated, they can do other things, and we're taking care of this in a faster manner. So we've got some advocates now.
Perfect. Thank you, Vidya. Jonathan, thank you. In your opinion, why is identity security critical today?
Do you want
Jonathan, you want to start?
Ask ChatGPT,
Okay.
see what he says.
Nice try. No.
Got to use that hardware. I think it comes into light when you start to analyze your access. Right, solutions like SailPoint and most other IGA solutions out there provide you that lens that we've never had before, right? And when we start to do access modeling, right, which is essentially what happens is once you have all this data, you're able to use AI to truly analyze this data and be able to determine, oh, hey, there's some pockets of access that have some correlation to one another, and how can we then start to define that access into proper bundles or roles or so on and so forth. That's when you start to realize how much access goes ungoverned, right? And that's one of the big issues is, and you'll hear this across the board, a lot of the talks I've been to this week have been around access that goes stale, right? The biggest thing we like to do in IT, from an IT perspective, is grant access. We love granting access, right? But we are even better at forgetting why we granted the access, right? So that's where the attestation comes in, and it plays a huge role, right? So when someone says, why are we investing in this space? I'm like, you clearly haven't had a security incident or what's going on here, right? Because that's the attack vector now, right? They're trying to find those stale accounts. That's how they're doing the lateral movements. And that's the other component to this too, is this whole identity security is really changing our perspective. Before we think about it as an account, and you have an account that has access to some specific application. Now we have an identity that has several accounts that have access to those applications. And then we have privileged access. But now those two are actually converging. Now everything's considered privileged, right? Everything should be because of horizontal, right? Because all the lateral movements that can happen. For us, that's been a huge eye-opener. And just being able to see and know that now our data, from a new hire perspective, for example, or onboarding, we've provisioned the access when you need it, exactly what you need. Before, accounts were being provisioned weeks, months in advance, waiting for you to arrive, waiting for that account to be used to compromise, right? So those are some of the metrics that we're able to utilize and show, and it's been tremendously successful for us so far.
Thank you.
Excellent. Just to add to Jonathan, I think we see identity as an integral part of our cybersecurity program. So it's just not kind of a pillar that just does its own access management. It is a center. So if you want to enforce GRC, governance, risk, and compliance, it comes through identity management. You want to do better cybersecurity, cyber defense, it comes through identity management. So it has actually brought identity management front and center into our cybersecurity program. So it has been kind of an uplifting moment for identity, at least in our company. And the fact that now we have a director of identity and access management that was never there before. That kind of speaks volume about the importance that it's getting.
It's changing, right? Be it a strategic company, enterprise company, mid-sized company, because we look at who are the identity buyers. And we've done a lot of research on this, right? Working with a number of analysts. And we know there are the IT buyer, of course. We know they're the ones implementing it. There is the identity buyer. There is the security buyer. And then there are all the secondary buyers, like the legal teams, the HR side of it. So this is actually a team sport, right? You can't look at it and saying, all right, my buyer is just the identity buyer. It's not going to work. It's not going to go fast as well. So it's so critical to bring all these stakeholders together to move the system and move the program rapidly as well, right? So it's so critical. So thank you, both of you. And what advice would you give someone who is looking to speed up their identity security program or looking at modernizing it as well? What would you recommend?
So I would start with saying, understand the value. Understand your business first. Understand what is it that you do from a business perspective, and try to kind of write down what are the value propositions you can bring. So obviously a roadmap would be great, but sometimes we don't have the benefit of creating it. We kind of create it on the go. So myself included. so it's just kind of find the true low-hanging fruit, if you will, that can be kind of used as a way to sell the program. So just instead of kind of waiting for a big roadmap, understand the business, understand what those small, high-level things we could do, and just start that as a process to create momentum. And then, support will come. So it's basically, the faster we go, we deliver something, the minimal viable product is still a real thing. People want to see that, and then, they will come. So that is my advice. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm going to augment a little bit to what you said. I think the problem a lot of times is that we don't get the right organizations behind us. And kind of what you're touching on is, risk over numbers. A lot of solutions, SailPoint, Identity Now, which is their SaaS offering for identity governance, or any other competitor, you name it, will provide you with tons of tools to onboard applications. Hundreds and hundreds of connectors. But numbers are not going to actually get you the buy-in. You can sit there and onboard hundreds of applications and all be the wrong applications, right? That's where you need to go back to that risk that you described, ensuring that you're tackling those. Because the moment you get people like your CISO behind it, now this became their top priority. That's where this starts to get traction, right? And if we keep it within an IT activity, we're going to continue to be that team that everyone hates. That team is just coming and telling me that I have to stop what I'm doing and do them. That's not going to apply. So I'm just going to reiterate again. Make sure that your priorities are ordered with risks. Make sure that you're bringing in those things that you're top of mind for your CISO. I guarantee if you talk to your CISO, they're going to bring up identity security in some capacity. This is our responsibility in this space as experts to come to them and say, actually, you know what you're describing right there? You're describing an identity governance solution. Okay, well then go solve it. Perfect. I'm going to go solve that, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to show you. And that's exactly the relationship we have with our CISO. He describes something, and then we say, we know exactly what you're looking for. We go and execute that and come back. Now we have him as our ally, and he's helping us push, right? So what does that all lead to is establishing a steering co. Your steering co is going to be critical. This program can't survive without a steering committee. You need to get the right players involved from different areas of your organization. That's going to be the only way you're going to get them to actually push back. If you try to do this alone, you will have I'm not going to say you'll fail, but you'll have a very hard time succeeding. And that amount of time that you're struggling to succeed, if it's too long, is what's going to stop folks from believing in the program, stop investing to this program, and before you know it, you're struggling trying to get your management to believe in you again.
No, thank you, Jonathan. I want to share something, right? SailPoint, about 2 years ago, we wanted to really understand the ecosystem because we were looking at it, and for us ourselves, we were like, where is this industry moving forward? What's the segmentation of our existing customers? So we worked with McKinsey and then Accenture last year, and we wanted to look at the 5 different horizons. We sort of came to 5 different horizons because we wanted to understand the maturity, we wanted to understand the adoption of identity capabilities, identity types, what the growth is, and how long it takes to adopt from one horizon to another. So if you see this chart here, it's really horizon 1 to horizon 5. Horizon 1 is really the least, it's all manual, very fragmented. Then, of course, when you get to horizon 2, they've been hit by some breach and they need some tools right away, but it's still manual. There is no, there's no support from the organization. 3 is there's a little bit of digitization at scale. They've started buying the right tools. They're still trying to figure out, how do they scale a little bit more? And Horizon 4, all the AI tools is coming into place, and of course they've got the full support of the organization. And Horizon 5, we had about 1 or 2 companies in the globe today, right? And we still question that aspect of it. But if you look at 2022 and 2023 numbers, what's really interesting is the opportunity that we all have in front of us. Last year, 44% of global companies are still at the very early stages. They're in Horizon 1. The previous year, it was 45%, so a small shift there. And of course, there's a big chunk of customers, organizations around the globe, 20% last year in Horizon 2, and there's been a shift from Horizon 2 to 3 last year. So this year, again, we're going to be doing this research to see what the trends are. And we're looking at the trends, across all different identities, workforce, non-employees, and of course, machine identities. And we're looking at all the different capabilities, from privilege, from cloud governance, data governance, there's quite a lot. So just bringing this up for you to look at it. And what's really interesting is we have a very nice tool, nice adoption tool. You go to our website and you'll be able to take 15 minutes with your team just to understand where you are in your journey. And then, of course, we're here, SailPoint is here to help you along that journey as well, because we have a very systematic process of how to help customers from Horizon 2 to a 3 or a 1 to a 3, and how you can leapfrog from a 2 to a 4 as well. There's lots of good examples and case studies that we have for the past 2 years and how we've been helping customers. So I wanted to leave this with you so you can go back and sort of take a look, understand where you are, and work with SailPoint to help you along. Right? I think there's no code, and of course it's a security side of it. So go to our website, sailpoint.com, and you'll be able to see it right on our homepage. So with that, I want to thank our epic panel members here. Thank you, Vidya. Thank you, Jonathan, for sharing.
Thank you, Jensen.
And have a lovely evening, everyone.
Thank you.
See ya.